Brian? Yes. Can we go start from the top one more time?
Have to lubricate, man.
We're starting at the top again?
Yes, please. Yes. And morning. You don't have to rush through the first one. Take it. You rush it.
Maybe that is his face.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this is, yeah, you know, this is. I know, fighting soon. It's here. So, yeah. Okay. 2 measures before they come in.
Brian, I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
It might be possible to just start the piece 2 measures before we, since we don't have a violin.
What do you think, Marlon?
It's fine with me.
It's fine with me.
Because even when I play it right, it's a little weird.
Right.
And there's always the chance I'm not going to play it right. Because it's a whole hell of a lot of
Okay, let's
accidents.
just start the 2 measures before they come in. Works. So that's all the quarter notes, and then
Yep.
higher. Some final instructions before we go. Before we start this section. Our job as a choir is to make connections with our audience. In this case, it's a congregation, and we are then make the pledge your allegiance. Let's read that. It's the same emotion. Same purpose. Believe what you see. How many of you have ever had that moment where you're been in a concert or you're actually been singing and you get hairs in the back of your arm start to tingle? And that's because you're making a connection with your audience. That means they're feeding off the energy that you're producing and they're giving it back. And that's what we want. I want them to feel what you're feeling as you sing. Feel that energy. So it's kind of like a straight wave. As it starts, continues on. Can't say how many times in college where that has happened, and after our section That's what we want here. So get rid of all the native speech in your head. There's going to be a lot of energy. But the point is, if you go, oh, I screwed that up, and it comes up with this, it's just not going to happen. Yes, Lord.
I just came into the back. Back.
Yes. Thank you, Lord. Okay, so interface, that's all I have for you right now. If you guys want to go skip one voice. Yeah, I want you up there. Yes, well, that's just
Right here?
yes.
This is the one I want to program.
You're going to be sitting. Even if you don't want to the right hand is to your left, that's what you're sitting.
Okay, that's right. I'll be right back.
All right. We're gonna. Oh, what? You know what? We're gonna practice our song.
Okay. All right.
Get your steps. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I just don't want to fall down.
Right where we were last night. There's Tuesday. Tuesday. When we're done with this, that comes I am Keynote 26, 27, 28. 28. No, I was thinking of something else and I wasn't. Okay, that's before you come to God. Remember being friends.
Good evening. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you all here. I have been instructed, my name is Rusty Butler, I'm the pastor here, and I've been instructed, if you can, just move a little bit closer together, but if you can.
Welcome to Pride. So for those of you for whom this is the first time, this event happens annually every Thursday to kick off Pride Week or Pride Weekend. So we're really excited to be gathered here with, I think, about 36 or more different faith communities to affirm and uphold the LGBTQIA plus community. Isn't that great? So I'm Jen Jesse, I'm from Recovery Worship. It's a new inter-church community. We've got the band here that'll do some music for you. We've also got the One Voice Choir, which is an LGBTQIA plus choir. And then we've got an interfaith community choir here as well to be presenting some music. So we're all really excited. We'll have some meaningful speaking and things like that as well. I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground at all? All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. Fighting voices in my head that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Oh, you say I'm loved, you say I am yours, and I believe, oh I believe what you say to me, I believe. Don't be afraid, don't let hope fade. Keep your eyes fixed on the light above. In the heartbreak, in the mistakes, nothing can separate you from love. Don't be afraid, don't let hope fade. Keep your eyes fixed on the light above. In the heartbreak, in the mistakes, nothing can separate you from love, 'cause you are the love. I wanted you to know you are the love. Soak into your soul. Oh, forget the lies you heard. Leave behind the hurt and listen to these words. You are the love. I want you to know that you are the love. Yes, you are the love. There's only one song worth singing and say ya, 'cause it hangs someone like you. But you gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion, like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. Can you hear them loud tonight? Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm more song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. Woo! We've got the right to choose it. There ain't no way we'll lose it. This is our life. This is our song. I know you know the song. We'll fight the powers that be just. Don't pick our destiny, 'cause you don't know us. We don't know wrong. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. Oh, we're not gonna as you shoot across the sky. Baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colors burst. Make them go, oh, oh, oh. You're gonna leave them falling down, down, down. Boom, boom, boom. Even brighter than the moon, moon, moon. It's always been inside of you, you, you. And now it's time to let it through. No better you than the you that you are.
No better you than the you that you are.
No better life than the life we're living.
No better life than the life we're living.
No better time for your shine, you're a star.
No better time for a shine.
Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're beautiful. Life is a race we run, so run till the race is won. Don't you ever give up. Oh no, never give up. Life is a race we run, so run till the race is won. Don't you ever give up. Oh no, never give up. Oh, to anyone who's hit their limit, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. And even when you think you're finished, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. Keep on fighting, out of the dark into the light. It's not over, hope is rising. Never give in, never give up. It's not over. To everyone who's hit their limit, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. And even when we think we're finished, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. Keep on fighting, out of the dark into the light. It's not over, hope is rising. Never give in, never give up. It's not over. Yeah, Thank you. Exist, resist, persist.
Good evening. Oh, it's exciting, isn't it? It's so exciting. Now,
Is this the way Salt Lake City's?
This-
They're excited?
Are you excited?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. Now, I know there are some people who are sitting back there. If you don't have a view, you can come in and sit along the side or stand along the side if you'd like to. You're certainly welcome to do that. I think we're pretty packed, but I think there's some room up here in the third row, so you can come on up. Doesn't matter. We might recognize you as clergy if you sit there, so be careful. All right. On behalf of the people of Christ United Methodist Church, welcome to the 17th Interfaith Pride Service. We are so proud and honored to have you here this evening. Thank you for coming. Christ United Methodist Church has been a reconciling, open, and affirming congregation for the past several years, and we are excited to be able to host this service for the first time. Now, at this point, I want to acknowledge that we have some VIPs. You're all VIPs, but we do have some people who are in the political arena here in Salt Lake City, and so I wanted to just have them stand as I introduce you, and if I get your names wrong, I'm so sorry, but we have people from Mill Creek. You are in Mill Creek right now, and we have the mayor of Mill Creek, who is Jeff Silvestrini, and that's Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Sherry Jackson is right there. She is a city council member. And is Bev here? Is Bev here? She's coming, okay. Ann Granado is here. She's in the Salt Lake County Council. Anna Valderramos is here. There she is. Thank you, Anna. And Aaron Mendenhall is here from Salt Lake City Council. Aaron, no governor tonight. He sent his regrets. So thank you all for being here this evening and for your support. I'd also like to take just a moment to thank the people, some of the people who helped put this service together. The planning team of clergy and faith leaders, the choir and music people, our AV team, the ASL interpreters. A special thank you goes out to the group from Mormons Building Bridges who handed out the bulletins, some of the bulletins, and to the members of PFLAG who are helping with the reception right after the service. And thank you to the members and friends of Christ UMC who have, with great cheerfulness and brisk readiness, helped to get this all together. So now I am going to invite the leaders of the different faith communities to stand as you're able. Go ahead, you all, stand as you're able and turn toward the congregation, if you would, to lead them in the call to worship. And I will help start that. And then you'll just respond with the words that are up on the screen. Today, we gather to celebrate our great rainbow diversity of life. No matter how we came to be, whether we have gone through pain, renewal, growth, hope, today our paths meet to share common ground. Today we gather to affirm the beloved value of every life. We are here. And we have always been here. We exist. We reject the forces of oppression, discrimination, and injustice. Gathered together today, we remember that we are not alone in the quest for justice. Let us strengthen each other and work together for what's good. Against that which tries to hurt us and tear us apart, we will resist. We will shine. Let us work for a continually better and safer world where we do not have to hide any essence of our being, where we are all welcomed and celebrated as part of the diverse beauty of beings. Lifted and powered by hope, love, and peace, together we will persist. I invite the congregation, the faith leaders, to turn toward this way. I invite you all to stand as you are able. And the choir will sing the first verse of Everyone Born, and then we'll sing the same verse, but everybody will sing that.
Stay.
Now, in our tradition here at the church, we take time at the beginning of each service to greet and acknowledge each other and to pass peace between us. And so I invite you to turn to someone you may not know, share your name, maybe what faith organization you're from, and pass the peace. Let's take a minute to do that.
Hello, everyone. Peace be with you. That was worth all of it. My name is Christopher Kakuyo Sensei, and I'm the sensei of the Salt Lake City Buddhist Fellowship. And I'm going to begin our inter-Buddhist Sangha chant. And we're going to start with the chant from our fellowship, and that is Amatabya, which means, in our tradition, come as you are, just as you are. And nobody's going to try to fix you. Don't come as you think you should be, or as others have told you to be. Simply come as you are. You are whole as you are. And that's the spirit of the chant. But the spirit of the chant is not just an invitation to come as you are, but it's an invitation that we give the same reciprocal invitation to our lives. That our lives come as they are, and we attend to it with attention, mindfulness, intention, and boundless compassion. Okay? So I'd like to ask our fellowship to come up. And we'll go ahead and start by inviting the bell.
are the rainbows, the symbol of the gay, lesbian, interfaith, and other kinds of our community. It's very simple. The idea is that the rainbow basically encompasses all the colors that are available to us, but we can mix and mingle them in many, many ways. And as a result, the symbolic meaning of the rainbow in our craft and the way that we follow the pagan and the spiritual movement of color and change is that each and every one of you is different from the others. Each and every one of you holds to yourself certain specific colors, and they change from time to time, but you put us all together and you have a lovely, beautiful creation and combination of possibilities. And therefore, the candles which we are going to light, each of them has a representation of a different kind of power and spirituality and sensitivity. And when they are all lighted together, they represent all the possibilities of positive, powerful, and loving interaction, whether you are gay or straight, whether you are old or young, whether you are partnered or not. The one piece of this particular working is that there are very many of us who have not made it. There are gay and lesbian people who have died from violence, who have committed suicide, who have died of HIV or other reasons. And one of the reasons we do this working every time we do the Pride service is in memory and honor of those people we have lost. And therefore, after the very first color, the red, has been spoken, I would like you throughout the remainder of the other 5 colors, I would like you to feel free, if you like, to stand and speak aloud the name of someone whom you would like to remember. We may not all hear each other, but all those names are becoming part of the spirit, part of the energy, and you are breathing in that remembrance of those people. And that is the purpose of this rite, which we shall begin right now.
Okay. Red, we celebrate the wholeness of the root, the blood of life, which is the essence of our being. We celebrate our lives, our physical bodies, in their pure, flowing, fleshly, living, breathing humanity. We remember those whose being has been obliterated, whose lives have been ended prematurely, who have died by suicide, murder, or violence, because their being has not been honored. We speak their names.
And you will repeat as you will after each. We hear and we remember. Feel free now to raise yourself and speak a name when it feels right to you.
My father, R.H. Peck.
My brother Michael.
Ray Reynolds and Dale Rowe.
My brother Leonard.
David Stephen Pettigrew.
Erica Marco. Tom. Bill. Rob and Kevin.
Melissa Solstice and Nicole Solstice.
Brian Moore. Robin Jordan.
My brother Scott Thompson. My brother Darrell Washington.
Richard Hibbs, my brother-in-law.
Stephen Tremaine. My friend David Barron.
Sharon Smith. Chad Beachy.
James Josephson.
Leslie Baxter. Stevie Thomas. Karen Calderius. Ed Combs.
My cousin Eric McConnell.
Friend Thomas Braswell. Matthew Shepard. Lee Bowery. And Andy Wall. Stuart Matisse.
We hear, my friend, and we remember. Please feel free to continue to do this throughout the remainder of this continuum.
My cousin Max Diamond.
Orange, we celebrate the fire of passion, the knowledge of our sexuality, sexual preference, gender, identity. We celebrate our inner knowledge of who we are, who we love, how we fit into the totality of creation. We remember those who have died unloved, or who have never learned to love themselves, or who know not that they are beloved of the Holy One.
We hear and we remember.
My cousin, dear Duckwood.
Fred Schultz.
Tony Michelia.
We celebrate the golden light of self-awareness, of personal strength and power. We celebrate our uniqueness and diversity as a community of many separate selves. We remember those who are disempowered, who have not been able to live in the golden light of the sun, who have been ignored, disrespected, relegated to the shadows.
We hear and we remember.
Green, we celebrate the verdant green of healthy growth in our communities. We celebrate the compassion, selflessness, love, and devotion of those congregations, communities, and individuals who serve the least among us, with love, respect, and dignity. We hold them in thanks and remembrance for the vibrant and healthy atmosphere of the community they engender among us.
We hear and we remember.
Sunday, Nate, Viv.
Blue, we celebrate the clear and direct communication of our advocates and allies, those who speak for justice and human dignity and refuse to be silenced. We celebrate and honor those who speak clearly of their truth regardless of the consequence to themselves. We remember those who have been made silent, whose voices are stifled, whose needs and feelings remain unheard, and we give thanks for those of you sitting here who are willing to speak and know and act in accordance with the power of love. We hear and we remember. Violet, we celebrate the violet vision of those in positions of power who have vowed to create a new way of living and being for all of us. We celebrate the vision of full civil rights for all in our communities, the vision of legal marriage, the vision of non-discriminatory workplaces, the vision of equality of housing, health care, and parental rights. We remember those who have been harmed by the blindness of others, those for whom these visions have been denied. We hear and we remember. And this last one is for you, so please stand. The crystal light. We celebrate the clear and transcendent spirit right here, which brings us peace, healing, and knowledge of our own innate goodness, holiness, worthiness. We celebrate the many and sacred names of the Holy One, those eternal truths, values, and aspirations which each of us honors within our own hearts and lives. We celebrate the clear truth of our knowledge of the love of God and Goddess, however we choose to interpret them. And we give thanks that we are able to be here, that we may share with one another, and that each of us will walk forth from this place knowing, thinking, feeling, and doing more than we did when we came in. We hear and we remember. Amen, namaste, and blessed be.
Amen. Rob, where are you? Oh, there you are. Come on up. Rob Moman is the executive director of the Utah Pride Center. He is a native of South Africa and came to Utah 3 years ago by way of Australia. He has a Master's of Education Leadership from the University of Melbourne and is working on his PhD in education with an emphasis on LGBTQ youth. He was named Person of the Year by Q Salt Lake Magazine for his work with the Pride Center and his open and welcoming attitude. And we are grateful to have him with us tonight during what I am sure is a packed schedule of Pride events. So thank you for being here, Rob.
Thank you so much. I'm beginning to question that open and welcomeness that we have at the Pride Center because I've not really experienced anything like I have this evening. And it, to me, I'm a little bit flabbergasted, to be quite honest, and I apologize if I stumble through this speech, but I just think that this is one of the most amazing events that I've been to, certainly in Utah, and I would struggle to think of another event that I've been to like this in my travels through the world. So thank you all. Thank you to Rusty, and thank you to all the members of the communities and as Pastor Curtis said, the queer clergy sitting in front here. Thank you so much. I want to just quickly, I know that I'm scheduled to talk about the history of Stonewall, and I was given 5 minutes to do something like that, but I just want to talk about one quick thing that really struck me as I was thinking about the service this evening. And it speaks about one of the moments in my life as a young, gay South African man who was confronted by a crisis of faith. Until I heard Nobel Peace Prize winner Archbishop Desmond Tutu speak at a United Nations conference. Now, for those of you who are perhaps a little young and don't know who Archbishop Tutu is, he's one of, to South Africa, and I think to the world, one of the most important clergymen that has, that is still with us and that has worked in the realm of marginalization and discrimination. And he was an Archbishop of Cape Town. He fought against the apartheid system in South Africa. And I suppose the easiest analogy I have is that he was sort of like a South Africa's version of a Martin Luther King kind of figure. And what I was struck by when Bishop Tutu was speaking at the United Nations, and while I was going through my own kind of, as I said, sort of questioning of how do I connect with the faith community that for years has told me that I don't belong. And Bishop Tutu said the following, and forgive me for reading it, but I want to get him quite correct. You don't mess with the bishop. He said, in public, he said, I would not worship a God who is homophobic. And that is how deeply I feel about this. I would refuse to go to a homophobic heaven. No, I would say, sorry. I mean, I'd much rather go to the other place. I'm as passionate about this campaign as I ever was about apartheid. And it was like a rainbow explosion went off in my head at that point. And I realized that this man, if that man, that incredible man of God, was able to say that and say that in public, then there was no schism in my heart anymore. And it is why we at the Pride Center are really trying to do some work to bridge this, I think, imaginary gap that exists in public discourse around the separateness of your LGBT identity and a faith or a spiritual identity. And we thank people like Pastor Curtis. I went to the fabulous queer Seder the other day. I'm trying to find the cantor over there. And it really is fabulous to see that happening. And it leads right into what I'm talking about. These things would not have been possible if it wasn't for Stonewall happening 50 years ago. And as you would have seen, sorry, it was up there a few minutes ago, the theme of our Pride Festival this year is Exist, Resist, Persist, 50 years of Stonewall. But what is Stonewall? And one of the things that we forget is that Pride, as we know it, was started with a riot. In fact, it was actually started with a number of riots. I went and did a little bit of research. There was the Cooper's Donut Riot in 1959. There was the Compton's Cafeteria Riot in 1966. There was the Sip-In at Julius Cafe also in 1966. And in 1968, 1 year before Stonewall, there was the Patch Riot. And this led to the birth of the Metropolitan Community Churches. The following year, Stonewall happens in New York City. A group of bar patrons are pulled out of the bar by the police for gathering there. A variety of people, a number of transgender individuals, a number of drag queens, gay people, lesbian people, and they were pulled out and were all going to be arrested. And at one point, I think this is the part of the story that sticks with me the most. It's a complicated story with a long history, and I cannot do it justice, but the part that sticks with me is the mythology that's grown up around the part where a young African-American black lesbian woman was being dragged away in front of this group of people. And as she was being dragged away, she looked at them and charged them and said, "Why aren't you doing anything?" And 3 days of rioting followed. And that charge sticks with us today. Why aren't we doing anything? People did start doing something. I mean, we know those people. We know the stories and some of the history of people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera and Harvey Milk and Harry Hay and Barbara Gittings, Audre Lorde. We know some of the more recent people. We know about Edith Windsor, who got challenged marriage equality in the Supreme Court. We know about some of our local heroes, Jackie Biskupski, our mayor, the Salt Lake mayor. We know about Derek Kitchen. We know about Chris Wharton. People are stepping up, but there is a long way to go. And it is so joyous to see that we are able to stand on these shoulders of these amazing people who started this rainbow riot 50 years ago. Now, one of the things that I'm going to conclude by just quickly telling you why to us the Pride Festival is so important. It started 44 years ago in a small park in 1974, and it is a celebration and recognition of queer people, queer identities, the connection and the celebration of that. For the Pride Center, it is important because it is our biggest fundraiser. It keeps our doors open. We love the party. We love putting on the party and inviting 60-odd thousand people to our little event. But for us, it's a money maker, and that money is vital for the programs, the services, and the advocacy of the Pride Center. We are the only space in Salt Lake City, or in Utah, in fact, I beg your pardon, that offers services, programs, and advocacy for LGBT individuals from cradle to grave. We have programs for young people. Our youth program starts at age 2 to 20. We have a program for trans people. We have a program for people who are sexually fluid, people of color and allies. And one of the most exciting programs we have is our new SAGE program. Apparently there's some SAGEs in the house. The Utah Pride Center has been focused on the health and safety of the queer community since 1991, and we cannot do that without people like you and without events like this and events like our Pride Festival. So I'm going to, with Russell's permission, just let you know that the offering tonight that you are very generously contributing to, is going to go to, I've been thinking about this a lot, but I think that it is in this year perfectly apt that it goes to our SAGE program and to our program for elder advocacy. As I said, we walk in the path that has been trodden by those LGBTQ elders, some of whom are in the room, and we are reaping the rewards of their sacrifices. We would not have a queer prom in Utah, which hosts 1,200 young people, if it was not for the work that people and elders in this community had been putting in for so many years. So it is time for us to recognize that debt, and I thank you. With your gifts, you honor the LGBT elder community of Utah, and thank you very much.
As the Interfaith Choir comes up, I would like to invite the ushers who are receiving our offering this evening to come forward if they're back there. The plates are back in the back. Yep, you've got them.
I have to follow this. Oh my gosh, one more time. Oh, that was beautiful. We bring before you, O God of mercy and love, the offerings from this interfaith service to give credence to the blessed rights of all people, not just a few, not just some, not just straight, but the blessed rights of all people, present and absent this night, to exist and thrive, to give strength for all people to resist the harmful acts against the LGBTQ communities, and to empower all people to persist throughout their lives for equal, safe, and love-filled lives. May this offering support the efforts of the Pride Center to be a place of comfort and empowerment through the love of God. Amen.
In my religious tradition, Unitarian Universalism, we believe that human beings are wonderfully made, perfect just as we are, endowed with inherent worth and dignity. And yet, there are times when we forget our worth. There are times when we forget the worth of others, and we behave in ways that don't align with our values, harming our human siblings and ourselves with our own selfishness and ignorance. In times like these, there is an urgent need to confess our wrongs. Our society has drifted away from the practice of confession, for indeed, in times past, we have leaned too much towards self-hatred and fear in confessing, yet there is also justice in apology. There is power in humility, and there is love in the desire for reconciliation and a fresh start. And just as so much of what is wrong in the world is systemic, not individual, so too, then we must not only confess our individual wrongs alone in our secret places, we must also come together as people to admit that we have built systems of injustice that have shut people out from God's one human family. Therefore, I invite clergy, straight allies, and anyone who wishes now to join me in a prayer of confession to our queer siblings for the wrongs our houses of faith have done to them and our intention to make things right. God of many names, tonight we call you mercy. We thank you for the vast diversity of religious traditions represented here tonight, for they show us the many ways we can see and know you. We thank you also for the ways that diversity is reflected in ourselves, even in our own bodies, and in the ways in which we love one another. We recognize that when we have not loved each person in the fullness in which you made them, we have not loved the fullness of who you are, all that is. And we recognize our presumption in trying to build walls to contain you. You, O God, who cannot be contained. Forgive us, Holy One, for failing to acknowledge the presence you inhabit in every precious soul. Forgive us for not recognizing your queerness in our queer siblings. Forgive us for not recognizing your love in their love for one another. We ask you not only for your forgiveness, but also for the ability to forgive ourselves. Remind us of our own worthiness. For when we perceive ourselves as being fully worthy of your abundant love and presence, it is easier to make room for the worthiness of others. Though we cannot undo the past, we can build up a future that more closely reflects the radically, richly inclusive love you have for each of us, your children. Give us the courage to reach for that future. Show us a vision of the perfect, whole creation you intended, one in which every single person is loved and included, not in spite of who they are, but because of who they are, in their perfection, just as you made them. All these things we ask, and from this day forward, amen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Reverend Elizabeth McVicker, and I'm the pastor at First United Methodist Church downtown in Salt Lake, and also Centenary United Methodist Church. Yay! It's my pleasure to introduce Bishop Karen Olivito to you. I first became aware of the Reverend Dr. Karen Olivito in 2015. This was before she became a bishop. We were both attending a conference in Sacramento, California, and I have to admit, I was a bit starstruck because she was, after all, the senior pastor at Glide Memorial United Methodist Church, which has 12,000 members. Glide is a legend in the United Methodist Church. It's located in the heart of the Tenderloin District in San Francisco, and over the years has developed extensive ministries to homeless people, recovery programs for those who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, HIV, AIDS programs, mental health services, housing, food, job training, you name it, Glide does it. And all with a rockin' Sunday morning worship service. Bishop Olivito was the first woman to serve as the Glide senior pastor. She earned her BA in psychology, cum laude, from Drew University, the Master of Divinity from Pacific School of Religion, a Master in Philosophy from Drew, and a PhD in the Sociology of Religion from Drew. She's been a professor at 4 different seminaries and written 3 books talking about homosexuality, Our Strangely Warmed Hearts, and Together at the Table. She was named by NBC Out, #Pride50, as one of the people making a difference in the LGBT community. But what struck me about meeting her in 2015 is that despite all of these credentials, Karen Olivito is amazingly down to earth. She's not haughty or lofty or snooty. Her joy in life shines. She looks you straight in the eyes as if you're the only person who really matters at the moment, and she smiles at you like she's known you all your life. She takes delight in being with people from all walks of life. Actually, she takes delight in everything except pineapple on pizza. No. She believes in the wideness and the depth of God's mercy and relentlessly demonstrates that even in the face of hatred and violence and bigotry from those who disapprove of whom she has chosen to love, she responds with love. She and her wife, Robin Ridenour, who's a deaconess in the United Methodist Church and a nurse anesthetist, have been together for 20 years and were married in 2014. I got to witness Bishop Olivito's election to the office in 2016. Actually, what I witnessed was the heavens opening up and the voice of God declaring that Karen is beloved and called by God to the office of bishop. She was the person for this moment in time in the life of the church and of the world. And it's not because she's openly lesbian. It's because she has a vision for what the church can and should be. And in her very person, we can glimpse that vision. Friends, please join me in welcoming Bishop Karen Olivito.
Oh, it is an honor to be with you for this Pride Interfaith celebration. I am so grateful for the witness you make in Salt Lake City, in Utah, and beyond, as you share boldly your life, your light, and your love. I want to share a story that I think has great significance for we who are queer. She always knew that there was something different about her boy. She saw the big and little telltale signs from the very beginning. The way he spoke, the way he moved in the world, all proved to her what she wanted to deny. And then there were those friends of his. If that wasn't a dead giveaway, she didn't know what was. They never talked about it, but it was clear that he was talking to someone. She caught him once or twice, talking in hushed tones, but he just brushed her off if ever she asked him about it. She suffered in the way only a mother could, holding so many conflicting and confusing emotions in her heart: sadness and joy, grief and hope, denial and anticipation. She knew that once he claimed who he really was, life would be even more difficult for him. And like any mother, this realization clung to her like a dreaded dead weight. They were attending a social function together. His friends were with him. He didn't go anywhere without them. She realized, looking at him, that he was more than just her boy now. And in that moment, denial turned into resignation, turned into acceptance. She knew that it was time for her boy to become the man he was created to be. There appeared to be a crisis at the event. She never would have guessed that it would be this time and place, but there you have it. She elbowed him and motioned to the bartender. Jesus, they're out of wine. Her implication was clear. If he was taken aback by this sudden shove out of the closet, he didn't show it. Without skipping a beat, he grumbled back, "Mother, stop it. It's not my time." Who would have guessed that Jesus would be outed by his own mother? By claiming who he was created to be, by leaving the closet, by allowing his mother to out him, Jesus offers us a very basic lesson on the importance of coming out. Not only is it good and healthy for the individual who can now live into the fullness of their God-given self, but the community benefits as well. Because if Jesus didn't step out and step up, the wedding would have been ruined. The joy of the day would have been overshadowed by despair and disappointment. The party would have been over. I can just hear Jesus' theme song now. I'm coming up, so you better get this party started. I'm coming up, I'm coming up. I'm coming up, so you better get this party started. Jesus models to us the important, yes, the bishop just played a Pink song. Oh, there's more to come. We're only getting warmed up. Jesus models to us the importance of people being allowed to grow into their God-given selves, blessed by God, affirmed by those around them, supported by the community. When this happens, the community gets to be its very best self. When we try and deny others from being who they are, when we shut closets tight as coffins, when we are forced to live behind masks, the soul of the community becomes brittle, the spirit of the community becomes crushed, the bonds of community are broken, and the joy, the love, the compassion that we have for each other is lost. The party's over. This turning of water into wine is the very first miracle Jesus performs in the Christian Gospels. It stands there as a reminder to us of this life of faith. Whatever your faith is meant to be a joyful one. Now, it doesn't mean that life is always going to be a party. There will be trials and there will be tribulations. But when we undergird our life in faith, there is persistent joy. Unfortunately, faith communities haven't always claimed this joy and have not always done everything in their power to ensure that all people are birthed and nurtured into this joy-filled life. In fact, faith communities have at times been a part of the squelching of the joy and the denying of the humanity of God's beloved. The racism, the sexism, the homophobia within religions do so much harm and must be challenged. But when religious communities get it right, miracles abound. Lives are turned around. Systems of oppression are dismantled, and joy is multiplied. Now, as Elizabeth said, I was blessed to serve for 8 years as pastor of Glide Memorial in San Francisco. This church has, for more than 5 decades, committed itself to living with and empowering those who exist on society's margins. Whatever one's status or social condition, Glide seeks to bring God's unconditional love and unconditional acceptance to those the world deems unacceptable, infusing the broken with healing and hope and agency. Glide has stood with the queer community since the early 1960s, and Rob, I loved your history lesson, and I'm going to give a little of mine from San Francisco. Several years before there was Stonewall riots, there was the Council on Religion and the Homosexual, started at Glide by Reverend Ted McElvenney, who witnessed the oppression and violence towards LGBTQ persons in San Francisco and brought together clergy and leaders of the gay community in hopes of seeking change. Now, mind you, this is the early 60s. This organization incorporated and became the first public organization in the United States to use the word homosexual in their title. The group continued to meet, and in fact, satellite chapters opened up across the country. The Council on Religion and Homosexual was committed to educating religious leaders about the concerns about the LGBTQ community and enlisting their aid and advocacy work. Now, what was remarkable about this group was they didn't wait for LGBTQ people to come in their doors to sit at a church meeting. Instead, they went where LGBTQ people found safety and sanctuary to be fully themselves, which at that time were very secretive what? Bars. Gay bars were the sanctuary for LGBTQ people. Now, they were frequently raided, but these clergy went to learn about the lives of LGBTQ people in these bars. A New Year's Eve ball was planned in San Francisco to raise funds for the organization, and clergy met with police to ensure that there would be no arrests or harassments of the attendees. The clergy attended the dance in an attempt to keep the police at bay. The police, though, snapped pictures of everybody who was arriving for the dance and intimidated the guests, and in the end arrested 6 people. The next day, the clergy denounced the raids at a press conference at San Francisco City Hall and began a rallying cry with the LGBTQ community for justice. Oh, if only that partnership had continued. As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, I have to wonder, where would we be if this earlier event had sparked the historic beginning of the gay liberation movement? How would conversations have changed in the ensuing decades if religious communities had continued to stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ community? I can't help but think, and we name some of them, of the lives that have been broken, bullied, and even ended because of the ongoing anti-queer rhetoric from people of faith. If we had stayed connected to each other, these lives could have been healed, made whole, saved, if only the religions continued to build a bridge into the LGBTQ community instead of erecting a wall. Instead, too many religions have deemed us acceptable if we hide who we are or who we love, or even worse, seek to change our very God-given nature. As a result, the closet doors hang heavy in faith communities. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen a movie called A Day Without a Mexican. Has anybody seen it? Some of you. I really encourage you to see it. It's a satirical look at what would happen if all Mexicans in the state of California disappeared. The movie shows the impact of Mexicans on California's economy as education, culture, hotel and restaurants, and other industries are suddenly ground to a halt. Well, bear with me. Imagine what a Sabbath without a queer would look like in our churches, our mosques, our synagogues. How many organ benches would be empty? How many choirs would be missing members? How many youth groups would be missing their favorite people? How many religious education classrooms would be leaderless? Would this wake up religious communities enough to see that we are offering not only our tithes and our prayers, but our talents in service to God, even when we are not allowed to bring our full selves to the pulpit and the pew? Would this help open the eyes of our fellow believers to see that we too are members of the faith community, necessary parts that are role to play in the ongoing story of the divine's liberative, redemptive work? So many are needing to be reminded of this fact. Religions have wounded too many of our queer kin and made them wonder if they have any place in the family of faith. After the United Methodist global meeting of, not this last one, which was bad enough, and I confess that, but I'm going to talk about what happened in 2012. I received one of the saddest pastoral calls of my life. The voice on the other end of the line was a former parishioner. And a voice that cracked with pain, he said, "Pastor, can you unbaptize me?" He had heard the homophobic rhetoric spoken at the meeting, and it had inflicted so much spiritual harm that he could no longer trust God's love for him. "Pastor, can you unbaptize me?" This broke my heart. Because for me as a Christian, we get to experience a love that will never let us go. No matter what the world says, no matter what the church may decide, we are loved by God. Now, I love baptism, and I know we come from many faith traditions, some who have different understandings of baptism, some who don't have it at all. But allow me to speak from my tradition. In the United Methodist Church, we do infant baptisms. Now, I especially love baptizing babies because when we baptize a baby, we're reminded something of the nature of God. See, it happens every time. There's nothing that baby had to do to get you to do that. There's nothing that baby has to do to earn love. They don't have to be a good girl. They don't have to behave in a particular way. Just by being, a baby is loved. This is what baptism is about. You are loved and there's nothing you can do about it. So when Jeff asked to be unbaptized, it broke my heart and made me furious because the church failed to allow him to feel how deeply loved he is. The church broke its promise to him, made at the time of his baptism, to love him no matter what. Because at baptism, the community makes a promise to remind you what you might forget. That you are unconditionally loved, that you are unconditionally accepted. It doesn't matter if you turn out gay or straight, if you're an addict or an accountant. Our task as siblings is to provide a reminder of this love whenever any one of us forgets. So one of my favorite passages in the Bible is about the baptism of Jesus. I love that story, and it was so amazing to actually go to the Holy Lands and dip my toes in the Jordan River and pour water on the foreheads of those traveling with me so that together we could remember our baptism. It was at the Jordan River, the place where John was baptizing the faithful when Jesus came to him for baptism, and John refused. But Jesus was insistent, and so down he went into the murky water, and when he emerged, the Spirit of God descended from heaven and said, "This is my beloved child, in whom I delight." Now, let's do a little Bible trivia. What miracle had Jesus performed at this point in his life? None. Who had he healed? Nobody. Who on the margins did he defend? Jesus had done none of it. He was a carpenter, like his father Joseph. What had he done to warrant this pronouncement, this love, this pride, this affirmation from on high? This is my beloved child in whom I delight. Nothing. Nothing out of the ordinary. The extraordinary work he did in the world came later. Jesus was loved for simply being Jesus. Do you know? Do you know in your bones that you are loved for simply being you? Do you know this way down in your soul? It's not your accomplishments, your wealth, your status that gain you love. You are loved even in those parts of you that you're ashamed of, that you're embarrassed by, that you try to hide. Do you remember who you are? Do you remember whose you are? No matter your religious tradition, remember, you are loved. There is nothing we need to do to earn God's love. It is offered freely and abundantly because we are God's heirs. The tough part is living it out. It's hard remembering who and whose we are, especially when so many want us to deny who we are and even try to change who we are. Especially in this time of regression against the gains we've made in the LGBTQ rights. As a president seeks to erase transgender citizens, it is especially important that we remember this truth. You've been claimed as one of God's beloved. You can choose to remember who you are and live this truth every moment in every breath, or you can forget who you are. God loves us and delights in us. Do you remember who you are when you're pushing papers at the office desk? Do you sit at that desk as a child of God? When you deal with coworkers, are you being present to them as a child of God? When you stand in line at the supermarket, do you stand there as a child of God? When you are dancing at the club, do you sway with the wild abandonment of one who knows God delights in you? When you love, when you work through disagreements, when you walk on the streets, when you get up in the morning and go to bed at night, do you do so with an awareness of how much God loves you? Remember, you are God's beloved child. God delights in you. No matter how the world might try to beat you down, there is a love that cannot be taken away from you. Never, ever forget that fact. Which leads me to Lady Gaga. What kind of bishop is this, they're thinking? I was at her, I've been to several, but I was at her concert in Oakland. That I heard a message of healing and hope that surpassed almost any I had ever heard in church. It was a rainy night, but the rain didn't damp the spirits of the concert goers, even as we stood in line waiting to get in. The crowd was a wonderful mirror of the beautiful diversity we have in the Bay Area. Hugs, laughters, and singing and dancing broke out spontaneously as the crowd inched closer to the doors, except for one man. Standing close to the crowd was a man, dressed with a coat, covered in slogans like, and I know this might not be familiar to you, so bear with me, hate the sin and love the sinner. And hell is for eternity. The man was shouting to the crowd so loud the cords in his neck stood out. And his face was beet red. He shouted things like, "You're gonna burn in hell!" Now the man was quickly forgotten once Lady Gaga took this to the stage. People were swept up by her performance. In between her songs, she asked people to support local homeless shelters, and in particular, shelters for homeless queer youth. Then she did something I totally wasn't prepared for, because Lady Gaga actually preached. She began by talking about Jesus. No, she began by talking to Jesus. Jesus, she said, some people say you only love a certain kind of people. Some people say that Jesus only loves one kind of person and not everybody, not every race, not every ethnicity, not every sexual orientation, not every gender identity. But Jesus, you have blessed me. I'm quite certain that Jesus must love everybody. Jesus loves everybody. With that, the crowd acknowledged this blessing she had given them with shouts and affirmations and claps. Now, Lady Gaga is an evangelist of the true message of most world religions. You are marvelously made, and God delights in you. And God invites us to enjoy the great diversity found in creation, especially within the human family. We are to delight in our differences, to look at one another and take a look around. Look at each other in wonder and awe at the beauty found here. This is the core message which we are to live into and share through great acts of love. We need to say to those who disbelieve that they're worthy, if there are parts of you that you've been taught to be ashamed of or embarrassed about because you don't fit in some nice, neat category of some arbitrary norm, God wants you to love those parts of you. You were created by a God who delights in you. Know this, honor this. You and you and you are marvelously made. You were born this way, so love yourself. You were born this way, so celebrate it. You were born this way, so extend the love that you've been so freely given by God to others who don't know this love, to those whom society has shackled their souls. Love them fiercely enough so that they may spring free and live this life with great joy. You were born this way. So just as Mary nudged Jesus out of the closet so the party could continue, so God is calling you out because the party wouldn't be complete without you. In fact, you know what? The best thing about this party, it's a come as you are party. Thanks be to God.
The Israeli poet Zelda, descendant of generations of mystical rabbis, wrote, L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatan lo Elohim, v'natnu lo aviv v'imo. L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo sona'av, v'natna lo ahavato. L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo chagav, v'natna lo milachto. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. We have each been called names not of our choosing. We have each of us taken on new names, names of struggle, names of love, names which speak our innermost souls. May you go from here known, loved, and respected by those around you as you are known, loved, and gently held by the Holy One. Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May the source of life bless you and protect you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
May the light of holiness shine upon you and give you grace.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha.
May the source of life know you, love you, and grant you peace.
Shalom, shalom.
going to invite us to go to the gym. We'll have a reception there. For the United Methodist, if you want to stay for a little bit longer after the reception, Bishop Karen will talk to us about the issues of the United Methodist Church. So, thank you for coming tonight.